Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Monday, the day after an Arsenal victory, would you believe it? The day after Arsenal scored 3 goals, the day after Willian scored. What is going on? Yes, it meant nothing. Ultimately, a pretty nothing game, really. But still, nice to see Arsenal win. Nice to see Arsenal score some goals and score 3 very good goals as well. Emile Smith-Rowe, Nicolas Pepe and Willian all helping themselves to a goal as Arsenal beat West Brom 3-1 in a game that relegated Sam Allardyce as well. So, you know, silver linings and all that. Not too much to celebrate this season. Well, nothing to celebrate this season, in fact, but always nice to see Sam Allardyce disappointed. So that was something, and it was a good performance from Arsenal. I mean, look, West Brom are where they are. They're not a very good football team, and so it wasn't a surprise that Arsenal won, perhaps especially when you look at the record when the two sides have come up against each other. Arsenal obviously beating them 4-0 back at the Hawthorns in December, but still, given what's gone on at Arsenal, given the week they've had, given the fallout and the post-mortem from Thursday night's Europa League exit, you thought they could well struggle in it. Mikel made a lot of changes, but the players who came in performed well. And after what was a pretty slow start, I thought, for the first sort of 20-25 minutes, they came good, scored those 2 really good goals in the first half through Smith-Rowe and Pepe. Had a little bit of a wobble in the second half, as Arsenal always do, but then Willian got that goal right at the end to put the gloss on it and seal 3 very valuable points, I suppose. Between now and the end of the season, you will still want to win games, despite the season pretty much being over. Get a little bit of momentum going into the summer, so Mikel will be happy with that. He was happy with that. He said it's always the best way to remedy the pain that we had is to win the game, to score 3 beautiful goals and create so many more chances as well. I think we conceded the goal. We looked nervous for a period in the second half before we got Thomas Partey on the pitch to recover some control. Overall, after not going through to the final, it's always very important to win the game. And there was some plus points. Again, the youngsters, really, as they have done all season, kind of the shining lights for Arsenal. Bukayo Saka playing at left back. The regrets that Mikel, and he said it yesterday after the game, he said he had no regrets over not playing Saka at left back against Villarreal. He said the only regret he had was Granit getting injured in the warm-up and not being able to play him there, but he must have gone to bed thinking, did I make a big mistake not playing Saka there? Because you saw how well Saka played there yesterday. He gave Arsenal that sort of attacking intent down the left-hand side that they've been missing during Tierney's injury. Certainly they don't have when Xhaka's there. Played really well. Him and Smith-Rowe linked up nicely throughout. That's how the first goal came around. Lovely ball by Saka. Lovely finish by Smith-Rowe as well. Technique on that, fabulous with his left foot as well. For a first Premier League goal, he was absolutely delighted afterwards. Understandably, big moment for him. And then Nicolas Pepe doing what Nicolas Pepe does. One of those specials, cutting in from the right-hand side, curling it into the top corner. So there was definitely some plus points. And yes, Willian got his goal as well, which is nice for him to get himself off the mark. That's not to say that it's been a very disappointing season for Willian. It clearly has been, but still nice for him to get his goal. And if he does stay in the summer, which I think he probably will, because I can't see Arsenal managing to move him on, given his wages and his age and his performances this season, it's going to be a struggle. So you kind of feel like Arsenal are going to be stuck with him. Hopefully that might give him a little bit more confidence going into next season, just to get that goal and end what's been a very difficult season on a little bit of a high personally for him. So yeah, all in all, decent game. So I mean, there's not really much more to say about it than that. It was just a run-of-the-mill Arsenal victory that gets them still slightly in a chance of a European spot. It's not totally out of the question yet. They moved to within 4 points of Spurs. With 3 games to go. Mathematically, you can't say it's absolutely impossible that they'll get a European spot, but still it's very, very unlikely. And I think everyone at Arsenal now is preparing for next season without European football for the first time in a long time, and it's going to be a big summer for Arsenal. A big overhaul is needed. It's going to be tougher to do that now without European football and the money that brings, but it's still going to be needed. I think we're going to see big changes at Arsenal this summer with lots of players going out, players coming in. And I think it's probably going to be quite a new-look Arsenal that starts the season next season. And you never know, when all's said and done, when the disappointment of last week is sort of diminished a little bit, looking at next season without the distraction of Europa League football on a Thursday night, potentially it might work in Arsenal's favour. You don't know. It's all hypothetical. We'll have to wait and see to next season to see that. But maybe if you're trying to find any slight little bits of positives, we've seen what happened when Chelsea missed out on Europe. We've seen what happened when Liverpool missed out on Europe, when Leicester weren't in Europe when they won the title that year. Not saying that Arsenal are going to win the title next season, but you know what I mean. So maybe there is something that you can take from it a little bit. But all in all, a decent enough afternoon's work for Arsenal ahead of a difficult game this Wednesday at Chelsea. Right, anyway, let's talk a little bit about transfers, shall we? We're getting to that time in the season now. The transfer window isn't too far away from opening. We're seeing deals being done already and lined up for the summer. And as I said, I think Arsenal are going to be busy. I think we're going to see quite a lot of changes at the club in terms of incomings and outgoings this summer. I think one of the stories that isn't going to go away anytime soon is Bissouma, the Brighton midfielder. We're seeing a lot of talk about him. Arsenal, obviously, we know, do have an interest in Bissouma, so do plenty of clubs. And the Times reported over the weekend that he is, asking Brighton to let him go this summer, and so he can move. Now, people over at Brighton seem to think that he will probably end up going this summer if their valuation is hit. And local reporters in Brighton seem to suggest about £40 million. I saw Andy Naylor of The Athletic saying Brighton wants sort of in excess potentially of £40 million for Bissouma. I think he's got a couple of years left on his contract. Decent age. Arsenal fan by a lot of people say. Sort of player who Arsenal could certainly do if I really like him, I have to say. Every time I've seen him play this season, he's been really, really impressive. I think he'd bring a lot of quality to that Arsenal midfield if they can get him, but other clubs want him as well. Liverpool being heavily linked now with Bissouma as well. Jurgen Klopp obviously looks like he'll be going to be losing Gigi Wijnaldum this summer and views Bissouma as a possible replacement for him. I think Manchester City have even been linked as well. But he's a player that Arsenal, you would think, are certainly going to be in the mix for. They've been watching him like most clubs for a while. Wonder if there's something Arsenal could do potentially with a swap deal this summer when it comes to Bissouma, if they could tempt Brighton into doing something along those lines. Now, as we've seen with last season's transfers, and certainly with this summer as well, with the money issues that all clubs are facing, you're going to see clubs getting pretty creative when it comes to transfer deals, lots of loans, potentially swap deals, that sort of thing. Well, swap deals are always easy to talk about, never quite so easy to actually put into practice, but you do wonder with Arsenal if there's something they could potentially do with Bissouma that's going to help with them, because 40 million is a lot of money, especially when you haven't got European football for Arsenal and all that. And then you look at maybe Ainsley Maitland-Niles, a player who Brighton have looked at in the past. You would think Ainsley's going to go this summer. Is there something you can do for that? They're both playing a similar position. Could Brighton be tempted into something with Ainsley? Probably looking at about £20-25 million player there with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Can you do something with him and then give Brighton a little bit more money as well? So Joe Willock as well, potentially. I'll talk about Joe Willock a little bit later on in this video, doing great things at Newcastle. Is he one that you could potentially tempt Brighton into doing business with? Even Reece Nelson as well, Eddie Nketiah. Brighton certainly looking for a striker this summer. There's lots of players that Arsenal are going to move on and look to move on, and you do wonder if sort of swap deals can come into that. And certainly the one with Bissouma, of all the potential deals that you look at, you do think that is a possibility with that one. Okay, right, let's talk about Joe Willock there. Now, I mentioned him earlier on in this, and his impressive form for Newcastle just keeps continuing, doesn't it? Another goal for him at the weekend. I think he's got 4 in a row he scored in the Premier League. Now, he's the youngest Premier League player to do that since Marcus Rashford in 2019. And it's going to be really interesting what happens with Joe Willock this summer and Arsenal. Obviously, he's there till the end of the season in Newcastle, but what do Arsenal do with him? Because you kind of look at it, and yes, he's doing well, he's scoring some goals for them, but do you really see Willock long-term at Arsenal? I'm not sure I do. And so you've got to weigh up a sort of business decision here. Is his value ever going to be higher than it's going to be this summer? If Arsenal really rate Willock, then fair enough, bring him back. And if you trust in him, bring him back and start playing him and using him yourself. But if they don't, and I don't know if they do or not. I don't know. But when you look at how much Mikel was using him and that sort of thing, it kind of suggests that maybe he doesn't really think he's like well up there, certainly in the sort of Saka or Smith Rowe category. Then if you don't, then this is going to be the best opportunity you've got of making some serious money for Joe Willock because of the form he's been in for Newcastle. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Arsenal do with him. You look at sort of 25 million, something like that. If someone bids that amount of money for him, would you take it? Newcastle, you think, are certainly going to look to get that deal done this summer. Looks like they're certain to stay up now, thanks to no massive part to Joe Willock and his goals. And they're going to look to see if they can get that one done permanently in the summer. And I just think, given the overhaul that Arsenal are going to do, the players are going to want to bring in, the money they're going to want to bring in. So someone slaps down £20-25 million for Joe Willock this summer, I think it's probably going to get it done. I'd be very surprised if Arsenal reject that. even though he's been doing great things. And up at Newcastle, I just feel like money-wise, it's probably the best opportunity you've got. You look at Arsenal last season, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, so decide to keep him, despite that interest from Wolves. Ultimately, it looks like a bit of a mistake. Arsenal didn't use him very much. He's done pretty well since he's gone to West Brom on loan, but you think his value this summer is going to be less than it was last summer when he finished the season really well, and those offers came in from the likes of Wolves. Are Arsenal going to get 25 million for Maitland-Niles this summer? I'm not so sure, and maybe they'll learn the lessons from that when it comes to Joe Willock. So it's going to be a really interesting one, what Arsenal do with Joe in the summer. But I do feel that if someone really comes in and puts that money on the table, it'd be quite hard for them to ignore, given what else they're planning to do when it comes to transfers this summer. And there is so much. We've talked about it before: right back, left back, central midfield, like we've talked with Bissouma. There's links coming out in France at the moment with Eduardo Camavinga at Rennes. I mean, I don't know anything about that myself yet, but there's plenty going to be happening. What's going on with the strikers? You bringing in a striker, goalkeeper as well. And like I said, Arsenal are looking at Anana, the Ajax keeper. They like David Raya as well. Is Leno going to go this summer? It could well happen. So there's going to be so much work for Arsenal to do. It's going to be really interesting summer, that is for sure. Okay, away from transfers a little bit now. Let's talk about look ahead to Wednesday's game against Chelsea. Big game. Perhaps not as big as it should be. Well, it's definitely not as big as it should be because of Arsenal's performances recently, but still a big game. Arsenal-Chelsea is always big. Team news-wise for it, the latest that we know in terms of Xhaka, Mari and Louise, they all missed out now. Louise was watching the game right next to us yesterday in the press box. He was walking through the press box a lot of the time, seemed to be walking pretty well. Mikel saying last night in an update, said, let's see how they recover again. We've lost so many players in recent weeks, so many big players. They have a huge effect in the team, and it will be great if we get them back because we have a very difficult game against Chelsea. One of the players who might end up missing out is Emile Smith-Rowe. Now, Smith-Rowe obviously played so well yesterday, scored his goal, but he didn't finish the game. He went down, was feeling his hamstring, and we're not sure on the extent of that injury yet. Mikel saying, I don't know, he felt something in his hamstring, so he took him off. Sometimes he cramps up, and that's been happening for a while because he's still adapting to the league, to the amount of games every 3 days. Hopefully, it's nothing major. He's right there now. With Smith-Rowe, we see him go down quite a lot of times. He's sort of cramped. You think he's injured, and then he gets up and he manages to see the game out. So fingers crossed that is the same this time, because we don't want to lose Smith-Rowe for the remaining games this season. Lastly, just in terms of how you think Mikel's going to approach that game against Chelsea. He made big changes at the weekend. I think you're going to see quite a few come in from who maybe sat out, who started those games on the bench yesterday. You look at the likes of Thomas Partey, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, that sort of thing. Mikel's saying the schedule that we've been through with the Europa League has been crazy. We played every 3 days with the circumstances we're in, with the amount of injuries we've had. We've put the players in a very difficult position. We need to freshen up. We need players to have the right mentality with the right attitude. So I think we're going to see more changes, not just for the Chelsea game, but every game that Arsenal play between now and the end of the season. There is going to be room for experiment. Maybe in that last game against Brighton, you'd look at the likes of Balogun, maybe Miguel Aziz, those sort of players. There was a lot of talk about why they didn't feature last night, those two. But you've got to remember, they played the full 90 minutes for the under-23s on Friday night in a really important game, which secured their survival in the Premier League division and sort of made sure they weren't going to get relegated. So it was an important game for them. That's why they played the full 90 minutes. And that's why they weren't involved yesterday. All right, that's about it from today's video. Thank you very much, as you always, for watching. And do leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about anything I've spoken about or what you thought of the performance yesterday. Always interested to read your views. Until then, everyone have a very good day. We'll be speaking to Mikel Arteta tomorrow at 10 a.m. press conference ahead of that Chelsea game. So please do watch out for any reaction to that. Have a good day, everyone. Speak to you soon.